Welcome to the Grandpa Channel, where stories don't fade, they get recorded. I'm Steve Harris. My grandkids call me Rivers. This podcast is where grandpas and grandchildren pull up a chair, turn on a mic, and let her rip. Grandpa stories are chock full of wisdom, life lessons, and frankly, funny as hell. Your stories are the magic elixir to help your grandkids navigate Mr. Toad's wild ride, aka life. Let's Grandpa. Good morning and welcome to the Grandpa Channel. We're here with a very special guest, one of my very, very good friends, Dennis Bledsoe. Dennis is a financial planner. Should we go into the commercial now about whatever each do? And we work really, really well together. I'm the legal beagle, and Dennis is the smart guy who knows how to do all of the investments and things like that. But we have a great working relationship. We have a shared love of college football, although he roots for the wrong team, but we can get into that later or never. And there's a very friendly rivalry. Dennis has one more child and what seems to be 30 more grandchildren than I do. It's a privilege to have you here. First of all, tell us a little bit about you and Kendall and your family.
So my wife and I, we're native Southern Californians. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is we are both the fourth of 9 children.
Really?
And so even though we grew up, not necessarily the same, neighborhood or anything, there was a lot of commonalities. I think our core beliefs, about our faith and raising children and all those things just dovetailed perfectly. When we met, we married in 1984, started our family in 1985, and I guess had 8 children over 25 years. And a year ago, we became empty nesters, and we love being empty nesters and love having 21 grandchildren and more on the way.
So where are all the grandchildren? You've got both local and...
Yeah, no, we have, let's see, one on the way that's in South Weber, and then we have 9 that are here, mm-hmm. On the Wasatch Front. We have 4 in St. George, 5 in Kansas City.
Wow.
And 3 in Charleston, South Carolina. And then our newlywed daughter and her husband are in Washington, D.C.
Oh, so, cool. Yeah. Tell me, we've discussed this, but tell me about your dad, and then tell me about your grandpas. And I think now, because of demographics and longer life expectancies, kids have more kind of experiences over time with grandfathers and maybe even great-grandfathers in some cases.
But. Yeah. Well, my parents were interesting. They married after about a year of college and immediately started a family and had 10 children in 13 years. Nine survived to the 10. And my dad was just constantly working. He was for most of my growing up, my formative years when I can remember, kindergarten, second grade, all that, he was a firefighter. And firemen would work double shift, would work a 24-hour shift. And to provide for our large family, he worked double shifts. Typically, he would work about 100 overtimes a year. And when typically a normal schedule might be 120 days. And then he had a business on the side. And so when he was gone to the fire department, I know my older brothers were the ones, they were type A. I was a middle child, just kind of, cruising along out there. But we had these 40-gallon vats in our garage, and we would dissolve, 5-gallon buckets of soap or, chlorine flakes, wash bottles, fill up these gallon bottles, load his truck up, and then he would go. He had a route where he would take soap and bleach to restaurants and bars all over Southern California. And so he was just always on the go, always busy. But I think by the time he was maybe 50, I think it caught up with him. And I don't know if the right word is a nervous breakdown or anything, but he left the fire department, thought he would do better as a contractor, started building rib additions, and pretty much struggled the rest of his life financially. But later in life, I have a brother who's done real well, and he was able to buy my parents a house. And so that was it. But my dad was a good guy. He was sometimes a little bit depressed because of maybe not reaching the financial goals and some of those things that maybe a lot of his friends had done. But I think his legacy and family, we have a great family, 8 surviving sons and a daughter, and done well. Good people, and it's it's a great legacy.
How many grandkids?
Well, I know there's well over 40, maybe 45. Out of that, I think he worked really hard. He wasn't always the best socially. My father-in-law was the perfect.
He was
Perfect.
Tyler. Right?
Yeah, he was the perfect grandfather where was very engaging with our, he would teach our kids how to drive and kind of take them like through pilot training and, okay, here you are in your cockpit. Let's look around and get aware, and that wasn't my dad. He was more in front of the TV and, seeing the contrast. I've tried, and my father-in-law is a total hero. I'll never be that, but I try to be more fun than my dad was,
Oh, isn't that interesting? I mean, we run into this a lot where either the dad or the grandpa to your children is gone or is physically spent or is dead. And we also run into situations where maybe the grandpa whiffed a little bit as a dad just because he was working his butt off and then came up bigger, as a grandpa. We see those, and there's no one size fits all. And I mentioned to you that I've never even heard the sound of my grandpa's voices, and I think it's ironic that I'm doing the grandpa channel, but I'm a grandpa, and so whatever I can learn from them, and whatever I can learn from great people like you, and tell me, what's your nickname for for some of your grandkids?
They're minions, the boys. So I have a grandson who's just turned 16. A bunch of granddaughters that are kind of between, like ninth grade and second or third grade. Maybe I think there's one who's a first grader, and then all these little grandsons. And then finally now we've got some new granddaughters who are just really small. But the boys they are very active. And if you've seen the Minion, I mean, where they're just kind of into everything, that's them. And there's, a group of about 8 of them. They get together. It's just
the gang of 8.
Yeah, it's complete mayhem. And they just love to dig in dirt, make mud, track it in, and I just know, no idea what that anything they're doing is a problem.
Yeah,
just oblivious to the no consciousness of that. But they're really good little dudes. And the fun thing is, most of them now are getting old enough to where instead of fighting over toys, they play together really well.
Oh,
yeah.
You have that stage though, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Or yes, it's mine.
Yeah, you get one that can mug the other 5, and thankfully, he's older now, and and with his other cousins, they love each other dearly and just love to hang out.
Yeah, that's something that's really surprised me. I was the oldest of my cousins on my mom's side and really didn't know many of my cousins on my dad's side, and I was too cool for school. I wish I'd done it differently, but as it turns out, they're great guys.
Yeah.
And they became really fabulous friends. And it's been really fun for me to see my kids really just absolutely love coming here and doing some fun stuff together and, digging. I see them carrying shovels out of my backyard and I'm, what are you digging? And they just start digging holes in my lawn, and they're a lot of fun. So has there been anything about being a grandpa that's been surprising to you?
I think the thing that's surprising to me is just how great it is, and the unconditional love between grandparents and grandchildren. Absolutely. The parents, it's up to them to do the nurturing. There's just kind of a connection there that they come over and we have fun and we feed them. And particularly if mom and dad are gone, then we can really spoil them and eat more goodies than maybe they would like, and stay up a little later and goof off a little more. But that's our kind of how grandparents roll. And so I think it's something that, that particularly the grandchildren that know us, sometimes there's little ones that are, I don't see us very often, and they're a little bit in shock.
I've got a grandchild or two that's trying to figure me out. One in particular that he likes me, but he doesn't like me. But he's young. He's 1 year old,
Yeah, but the ones that spend time with us, we just, we really get along well. And that's, it's fun to have that role. And I like, my name is Papa Dennis. Or
what is Kendall?
He's like Grandma Kendall, but it's Papa Dennis and Grandma Kendall. and it's the sweetest thing is when they look up, hold it on your finger and say, Papa, and I don't, to me, that sounds way better than Grandpa.
In our family, nicknames are, you don't just ask for one. It's bequeathed upon us. Yeah, bequeathed. And my wife, they wanted to call her G-Dog. She said, so I don't want to be called a dog. And they carefully explained to her what that meant. It was a term of endearment. She broke the rules and she goes by Queenie. Yeah, which I think is really lovely. And then you have a little 2-year-old saying Keenie. Really melts your heart. But this is kind of a little bit of a tender question. It's a tough question. How do you share? Have you figured out how to share your faith with your kids?
We have some kind of traditions in the family. And I think one of them is, and this is something that we did with our kids in our faith on Sunday. We keep a fast once a month. And then after that, we would take time at our congregation. You have the chance to get up and kind of share your feelings about how you feel about our Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and about your commitment to faith and how and talk about your blessings. And what we would do is, and what we do is when the kids are over or the grandkids, we will not eat dinner until we gather everybody in the family room and everyone has a chance to we call it to share your testimony, basically your testimony of Jesus Christ. But, and that was something that, when the kid, it's been a long day and they haven't had breakfast and they haven't had lunch and they're all hungry and they're focused. And first early on, they were kind of like, kidding me? But it became a sweet thing. And,
really?
That we...
Does everybody do it?
And if a girlfriend comes over or one of their buddies or a fiance or an aunt and uncle or whatever, everybody's invited. I think we've had a couple times a fiance has run out of the room crying because they were too shy. But they get with the program, actually they get with the program. It's pretty funny, but that's been a cool thing. And then another thing that I've started doing recently and this is something that when I was kind of in my, older teenage years and started to learn about my grandparents, about my ancestors, pioneer ancestors, it was really cool. And so I've actually started, and I've showed
you some of these, right?
Made some PowerPoints and actually put some video clips in, but just talk about, going back 3 or 4 generations about some people who were, come from some hard circumstances and did some cool things. And a lot of them involved coming from the East or the Midwest or coming from overseas to settle in the U.S. And a lot of the sacrifices they made were things that make life really good for us.
Oh, we have life really good.
Yeah, but most of it was involved in this westward expansion. And there's some pretty neat things, but also some tough things they went through and some trials and, there was interesting things. But I think one of the things that I think it's helped us is to understand that, hey, they went through hard things and it's okay. Life is hard and we can get through hard things. And if we understand that, seeing their examples in their lives helps us to cope. So definitely things are different nowadays, but having, a sense of who we are, knowing that my grandparents worked really hard to make life good for us today, to be able to have some gratitude for that, in the sense of, hey, I can do the same thing.
And I think I can do hard things because my great grandparents did it. And
oh yeah,
I think that's pretty cool. I've got a couple of tough questions for you.
Yeah.
We live in really, really crazy times. Last week was a really bad week. I know it personally affected me, and I know that it did you. What would you say to a grandchild or grandchildren who come to you and say, Papa, what do we do? I'm scared, or I've got these plans. Am I even going to be able to, because of the craziness of the world, do I just give up, or what kind of a good answer do you have? And, I think grandfathers should be prepared with answers along those lines.
That's a great question. 30 years ago, I remember kind of having this discussion with a friend of mine named Tom, who, we were both, kind of new to Utah at the time, working together. He's a good dude. But at that point, he wasn't married, but he was engaged and he got married. He's like, I don't know if we're going to have kids, because the world's so out of control. Last time I checked, he has like 6 kids now. Still living back, in Georgia, doing great. Yeah. Great family. I don't think there's ever been a better time to, there are so many good things. I think what happens is there's some bad things here and there, but I think they're a lot less frequent than they were. You go back a couple generations and, there's polio, and you'd have I have a great aunt who was a newlywed, and her husband died of an abscessed tooth back in the, 20s or 30s. And she's just a sweetheart, and he was taken just a couple years after they got married. And,
Wow.
and we've never been healthier. There's never been more opportunity. I think that the future is totally bright. And I think that the world is becoming a better and a safer place. I think the standard of living of most people, even some of the roughest places in the world, is improving. It's crazy. When we were kids, the Vietnam War was going on, and it was rough. If you were Vietnamese, they make all our shirts, and our Nikes, our tennis shoes, and I think they eat their food, and there a lot of these emerging countries are doing better, and I think and hopefully that will continue. Hopefully everyone's, but we're, even compared to when we were children, we're so stinking wealthy. But I think the thing that concerns me, maybe, and this is kind of a lesson from last week, is too many kids spend too much time playing video games or just online. I love it that when I see kids that have jobs after school, they're involved in the band or playing sports. They're just doing stuff, and they're busy as opposed to the kids that are online. And I think it's it has different, but with the girls, it's tougher on them socially and emotionally. And then on the boys, it just sucks can really suck initiative out of their lives. And so I think there's just to be a little well-rounded. And I think that's maybe, it's kind of more on the parents than the grandparents, but I just encouraging of them to be active and doing things and not shut in.
I think what you said, one of the things that really sticks out to me is the number of opportunities. I mean, when you think about it, it's, some of them involve specialized training, but a lot of them just mean experiential, especially with tech. There's just so many opportunities, and it's rapidly changing. And you hope that your kids have this curiosity, this good curiosity to kind of figure out how life is and what's going on in life, I think. So, but opportunities, I view it the same way you do. That there are great opportunities to be taken advantage of. Although I would say really quickly, along with that, people need to really have this close relationship with Heavenly Father and Jesus to figure out what they're supposed to be doing and be guided and be open to inspiration. And I think of some of the things that I used to worry about is before I got married and right when we were raising all of our kids, and some of them turned out not to be anything I should have worried about. They're paper tigers. And I mean, every kid has challenges. I mean, absolutely. Do you have any kids that have just flown through life?
No, never.
Never. So here's another question for you. And I'll tell you what my superpower is, but I want you to kind of maybe think about what yours. I think all grandpas have one or more, or maybe even dozens of superpowers. And it doesn't mean that, you're out, trying to, fight evil and all this sort of stuff. But I'll tell you real quickly mine, and then give you a chance about what yours is. Mine, believe it or not, is I'm really good at going cell to cell in maximum security. And I had that opportunity for 3 years at County Metro Jail. And I just found like it was showtime. Yeah. And I'd go in there, and then when you go in, it's this noisy metal gate that, it still rings in my head. And then everybody, they're up in their cells. They don't get out very much, and they are staring you down. And I tell people it's like trick-or-treating in a really, really bad neighborhood. Yeah. And I became kind of a reluctant tattoo connoisseur, but I just found that, and the thing that just hit me right between the eyes really quickly was that I felt that God really loves all of his children. Nobody would know that looking at me. I'm just a white kid from the suburb, and slightly. That's my lead up for what is your superpower?
And one of the things I like about being a grandpa is this kind of starts when we're older and we've had a lot of life experience. And boy, I must think, man, I wish I'd go back to, know what I know now, be 10 years old, have a two over. I think mine is, I've just learned some lessons, and maybe they've been the last 15, 20 years of my life. But I think one of them is just, I think sometimes when we're younger, we're really competitive, and maybe we see people and we don't necessarily, because we're unfamiliar with them. Yeah, that guy, he's just okay. But I think as we get to know people, and sometimes whether it's a work situation or you get to know them at church or whatever, we just find out how good people are. And I think that's something that sometimes we tend to think of ourselves maybe a little better than the next guy. And I think that one of the things I've learned is that's absolutely not true, that we're all great, and that we need to just learn to give each other the benefit of the doubt and be kind to each other and cheer each other on. I have great, great confidence in not just my children and grandchildren, but just youth in general. I think these guys have got so much potential, and I think most of them are launching. And it's exciting to be able to interact with them and cheer them on, express, the confidence that I have, that they're doing good. And this is maybe one of the things that's really kind of hit home with me the last, I guess this last period of my life is, I think, in the terms of, our standing before God, that a lot of times I would be kind of maybe hypercritical of myself and not understand, I think one of the greatest things that we underestimate is the power of the atonement of Jesus Christ, and that he does not expect perfection, but it's actually it's us. If we try, doesn't matter where we're at, but if we're inclined to him, then purifies us. And it's not, we can't do that on our own. We'll never get there on our own. No, we don't. But it's a gift if we have a broken heart and we come to him, often, with the sense that we want to do better, be better, that he's the one that qualifies us. And I think that's, I think that anyone who wants that can have that. And I think that there will be, and this is regardless of, what faith you belong to or where you're at right now, but anybody who wants that, I think, will have the opportunity to have that but I think certainly in this life, the more engaged we are in that and treating our fellow man better, and that our life is better here. But I believe that, there is a hereafter, and that we have the opportunity to live as families. And that's a really comforting thing. That we'll, that families are, that these relationships we have, don't end here. And it's a pretty cool thing. But I think just having, a good outlook and a good thought. In my church, I worked for a while in a position where I, kind of as a pastor, and worked with, individuals who were struggling, and just whenever somebody, would come in to talk, in almost every situation, just felt, felt joy that they wanted to improve their lives and hope for them. And I think that's a cool place to be at, to understand that, and I think we need to, watch ourselves and be good husbands and fathers and grandfathers and straight up and whatever we're doing. But I think if we're working on that, that's it's good enough.
I think a couple of things that I'm thinking when you were talking is there's kind of an underlying idea of there needs to be a curiosity, sincere curiosity about other people, instead of saying, well, why did you get that tattoo? I had a situation where I asked one of the inmates, I said, and it was a really ugly, big, huge tattoo on his throat. And I said, Oliver, what's the deal with this tattoo? You could kind of see that it was a butterfly, but there wasn't much color on it. And he said, Brother Steve, he says, I got this tattoo because I wanted to remind myself that from something that's ugly could come something that's beautiful. And that kind of slapped me back to reality. And I just thought, wow, and I think a lot of people have these tattoos. I'm not a tattoo guy. I'm too old.
That's not our generation.
It's not my generation. It made me look at it differently. And if I hadn't have asked the question, and it was a sincere, nice question. I didn't say, that's the ugliest tattoo I've ever seen. Why did you get it? That I was open to kind of what he was going to say. We could have this natural curiosity, almost a divine curiosity about other people. Yeah. And people feel it. And if you're really listening, which you're a really good listener, then I think they want to open up a little bit more. So we've talked about your superhuman powers. What do you think one of your main weaknesses as a grandpa is?
Boy, that probably, I am not, I don't have the social IQ. My wife has got, I can fix anything. I know directions. Mm-hmm. But socially, she really gets it. She walks in, she reads her room, she knows exactly. Yeah. And I think that's something I'm working to improve on, is to not just interject, but try it. Spend more time being thoughtful and asking questions. And she is big on she is win friends and how to win friends and influence people. Like, you never tell a story about yourself, except she does with her sisters. But socially, she's really great. And I think that's something that I, there's, particularly as our family gets bigger, I think everyone wants to be acknowledged and have somebody just really ask what they're doing and be interested in them. And that's something I'm working on.
I'm working on patience. I'm almost perfected in patience. I'm looking at my daughter as I say that. I'm not. But I just, I'm trying to get better, and I want to be better. I think that's half the battle. What do you think is the biggest kind of challenge or challenges that grandkids have growing up right now in the year 2025?
If I'd say, well, that's a tough list. A challenge for girls. I think my daughters and daughter-in-laws do a pretty good job on that. But boy, and that's done. Yeah, that's tough. A lot of interesting stuff, but I just really am so hopeful for them, because I know they're all in good homes, and I don't have a lot of worry. I don't lose sleep over who they are and how they're being raised.
I don't know. I feel the same way too, but I just think there are lots of challenges, and there's lots of ways to get in trouble, more than I think back when I was younger. And maybe parents have to have a little stronger hand. Yeah. Are you ever tempted to be the disciplinarian grandpa at all?
I guess I'm go, wow. I put one of my grandsons did something but naughty. I put him in timeout, and I think I got my wife and parents, my daughter and son-in-law, it's kind of gave me the stink eye. And so, I don't feel bad about it, but I think that it's better. It's much better the parents to do that, and not having that role. But it's funny because, sometimes we get some grandkids that they're tough, they push their parents' buttons. Mm-hmm. But it's funny when they stay with us, for whatever reason, and they're just different. They act better with us. I find that's a tender mercy. Yeah. I think we're not that equipped. They're like, hey, we're going to tuck you in. And then they want their 400-page novel for a bedtime story. Okay, well, let's be somewhere in the middle.
I love funny.
Yes, correct. Yeah, but that's that's so fun. A fun thing.
If you were talking to your younger self, just newly married, knowing what you know now, what would you tell that younger self? And with regard to kids and grandkids?
I'd say, first off, you're making somebody really happy grandparents by having all these kids, and I, that's, and then the other is, there's going to be this huge payoff, because you've had kids and they've had kids, they're going to have kids. Grandkids are just the huge payoff, and our kid, we did not have any children with, a serious, mental health issue or health issues. And we've had some of that extended family, and wonderful people who have done a great job and have put it all out there to help their kids. And we were, spared that. But I think that, having families is really important, and then obviously we've all have had large families. But I think, I would lean towards not be really thoughtful and not think that having another kid or two is going to be a burden. Cause I don't think it is. I think it's,
Some are precluded.
some are precluded from it. And I've seen families where they, had so many kids, you get the double digits, and every now and then you see a family where they really got overwhelmed. And I think their intentions were great, but I think you need to be thoughtful and maybe prayerful, and then it works out. It works out. But I think it's the concept of children growing up in a home where the parents are married, and and they're stable grandparents. I think that one of the worst things I think would ever happen is, for whatever reason, I did something stupid and ended my marriage and lost access to my children and my grandchildren and my wife. That would be, I can't imagine anything worse than that. And I think that's what really makes life rich. And I think the one thing I kind of get a little bummed about is that, we're not going to be around forever. I've got some of these grandchildren that are really little or maybe not even born yet. And I'm like, I hope most of them I'll be able to have a relationship with, or we'll be able to be pretty good friends while I'm here. And I hope to stay in good health for many, many years. I'm working on that. It's a battle. But that's one of the things I hope to do, is be able to stay active and be able to do things and get out and participate in activities with them. That's my hope.
It's been great, Dennis. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming by and talking.
Well, you didn't ask me about my superpower, Steve.
Oh, okay. What is it?
This is my real
superpower
with my grandchildren. I make this killer. It's called Mountain Man breakfast. Most, if you're scouting, what it is, it's eggs and potatoes. You put steak in there and sausage, whatever you have the meats, and put it, kind of serve it as tacos.
Really?
Then we have to fry the taco shell.
Yeah.
And then we make these like the little Pillsbury muffins, and we make their biscuits, and we just make a little hole in them, fry them in grease, turn into donuts and roll them in sugar. And that is I'm world famous in my family for.
So do all the grandkids?
Oh, everybody goes crazy.
Yeah, man.
And
Mountain Man breakfast?
Mountain Man breakfast tacos. They're kind of considered almost like a huevos rancheros, put a little cheese and salt on them. And then, because you make really cool plates of these little biscuit donut things. And those are, so we were there, they're not going to be here for Christmas, but we may have a Thanksgiving breakfast.
Yeah. You're going to
head for, and do that. But that's my, I love big goodies and so feed them.
My theory with boys especially is you feed them and make them laugh, and you're a pretty good go. Well, thanks so much for coming by, and I'm glad that we found out with superpower.
And again, I just want to say I love our association. I know this is a really fun career-wise. I think we both are real content that we're at this point working together and helping a lot of people. But it's fun to work with good dudes. And you're one of the best.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks, Steve.
Thank you for listening to yet another one of the Grandpa Channel web. What the heck am I going to call this episode? But thanks, and maybe I need to go take a nap. Okay. That's it for today's episode of the Grandpa Channel. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or better yet, tell your favorite grandpa. We're on a mission to gather 1 million grandpas, storytellers, wisdom keepers, and lovable wild cards. Until next time, keep the mic hot, the memories fresh, and the jokes just slightly inappropriate. I'm out of here.